So, if men are always thinking about the Roman Empire, what are women preoccupied by? It's true crime. We're fascinated by dark and twisted stories of murderers, kidnappers, cults, and serial killers. We binge watch documentaries, listen to podcasts, read books, and browse forums. We know the names, faces, and details of all the most notorious cases in history. Granted, we think about true crime for different reasons. Some of us are curious about the psychology and motives of the criminals, or interested in the forensic and investigative techniques used to solve the cases. We're empathetic and compassionate towards the victims and their families, and seeking justice and closure for the unsolved mysteries. Some of us are looking for a thrill, some excitement in our otherwise boring lives, and even more of us are trying to cope with our own trauma and fear. Hello everyone, and welcome back to M.M.0.S Stories. It's your girl Ella Favela, and I am so excited to introduce a new segment today that I've been working on since before I even relaunched the channel. It's called In Her Own Words, and it's a series of vlogs where we give a voice to survivors of domestic abuse. As you may know, I am a survivor myself, and I know personally how difficult it is to speak up and share your story with the world. I also know firsthand how frustrating it is to see the media and the public so often focus so much more on the perpetrators rather than the victims of domestic violence and other violent crime. They sensationalize these crimes, digging into the backgrounds of the abusers and speculating about their motives and their mental states. But what about the people who suffered at their hands? What about their hopes and dreams, their feelings? What about their side of the story? That's why I decided to create this segment, where I invite other survivors to use me as a conduit to tell their stories in their own words. I want to empower others to speak up, to reclaim their agency, and to heal from their trauma. I also want to educate society about the realities of domestic abuse, the signs, the effects, the challenges, and the resources. I want to show that survivors are not just statistics, they're not just victims. They're human beings with dignity and resilience. Every episode will feature a different survivor who will share their story with me in a safe and supportive environment. I will then edit and upload the video with their consent and their input. I'll respect their privacy and their anonymity, and I will not disclose any details that could identify them or put them in danger. I will be presenting these stories with the aforementioned edits made from a first-person perspective, to truly put it in her own words. These are the true crime stories which have not received any media attention. However, their validity as well as their weight are not lesser for that fact. These stories deserve to be told with dignity and heard compassionately. I hope you'll join me in this journey of listening, healing, and learning. I hope you'll support the survivors who so bravely share their stories with us, and I hope you'll spread the word about this segment so that more people can be aware of the issue of domestic abuse and how we can help to end it. Now, having said all of that, I would also like to thank today's special guest. Some of you have probably already heard of my good friend Cadaver already, if you're a fan of true crime here on YouTube, and he's graciously lent his voice acting talents to today's episode. He's always holding me down, and I'm very lucky to call him one of my closest friends. And fun fact, he actually dared me to restart my YouTube channel at the beginning of this year, so M.M.0.S Stories is at least partially his fault.
Damn him! Damn that man!
Anyway, he makes some of the most high-quality video essays on this platform, and his voice is absolutely delightful, so do me a favor. I'm going to leave links to a few of my favorite of his videos in the comments down below. Go check him out and leave him a skull emoji to let him know that I sent you. Before we get into today's story, I'd also like to take a moment to thank all of the new subscribers for joining the community. This past Monday, September 25th, 2023, we hit 200 subscribers, and at the time of recording this, we are past 250, so thank you, and please join me in congratulating user Piper McLean 761. Your username is up on the screen right now, on winning a free painting. Piper, if you're watching this, please DM me on IG or send me an email to hello@stageleftproject.ca so I can get in contact with you to mail out your piece. I'm also still running a giveaway on my Instagram where the 100th follower will be receiving a free painting. It is the joy of my life to know that my art hangs on walls all over the world, and I'd love for you to be next. I've actually got all my social links up on the screen right now, and they're linked in the video description as well. I'm the most active on TikTok, but I do exist everywhere else, so make sure to follow me everywhere for updates, contests, and giveaways. For the sake of full transparency, one of my immediate goals is to get this channel to the point where there's enough traction to monetize it. The scope of the good that I would like to do and the change that I would ultimately like to be able to effect with this project as a whole depends on my being able to reach a bigger audience and to produce better content. And getting monetized is a great foot in the door for both of those goals. While I dream of the day when I can support my advocacy by making art and videos full time, I mean, the corporate girly grind has its perks for sure, but the long hours and the insane workload, they're just not particularly conducive to the rest of my goals. I recognize I have a long road ahead of me to get to that place, but I am also completely humbled and amazed by the support so far, and I am dedicated to seeing this journey all the way through. You're all wonderful, and I feel so incredibly privileged to have you along for the ride. Bearing that in mind, if you would like to help me reach my goals a little quicker, please know that my original works, archival quality prints, and custom commissions are available for purchase directly through me. Send me an email, hello@stageleftproject.ca, or comment under any of my social media posts that you might be interested in, and we'll get the ball rolling. Just please note that the last day to order commissions with guaranteed delivery before Christmas is November 1st, 2023, so do act quickly to avoid disappointment. Today's story comes to us from Ava, one of the most incredible women I know. And she asked me ages ago, when I first started the Stage Left project, if one day I would tell her story. Before I do, I want us all to remember that 50% of women will experience at least one serious incidence of domestic abuse in their lifetimes. However, less than 30% will ever report it, and it's a fraction of that percentage who will ever even have the chance to see their abuser prosecuted. As you listen to Ava's story, I want you to remember that this could really be your sister, your cousin, your mom, your teacher, your neighbor, your friend. This could be you. This could be any woman you know. And if you still don't believe me at the end of this, I implore you to ask the women in your life if they have any stories to tell. And then I implore you to well and truly listen. We have the power to shift society's perception of this global issue, and we have the power to give the power back to survivors simply by giving them a safe platform to tell us what happened to them when no one else was there to bear witness. We take the power away from abusers by empowering survivors. I apologize for the long introduction today, but the context was necessary and important for you to consider. Now, without further ado, it's time to brew a pot of coffee, grab your paintbrush, and get comfortable. It is my honor and my privilege to present to you, in her own words, Ava. I've been through a few abusive relationships in my life, but this one really stood out for a number of reasons. Probably because it was the one where my life was truly threatened and I was genuinely afraid. I met Jake through a quote-unquote trusted friend about 7 years ago. He was charming and kind, seemed really sweet, and my friend vouched for him, saying that he was a great guy, so I gave him a chance. Then I let it slide when he asked for my number from my friend after I had told him that I wasn't interested in giving it to him. At the time, I thought his persistence was cute, but it was really a sign of how dangerous he'd turn out to be. We talked for a couple of weeks, and he'd text me every morning and throughout the day. He'd say things like, "Good morning, beautiful. What did you do today? How was work? Text me when you make it home." And he seemed genuinely interested in me. After a couple weeks, he told me that he really wanted to hang out, and he made it clear that there was no pressure for us to do anything. And he told me he was aware that I wasn't interested in dating and that I wasn't looking for a relationship, and I thought that was pretty respectful of him, so we went on our date. He took me to a local venue, we saw a jazz band, we played pool, we had a couple drinks, and I really enjoyed laughing and talking with this guy. When we left to go back to his place, he even drove a homeless guy that I felt sorry for down to a shelter because it was pouring rain. He seemed too good to be true. We went back to his place, played games, talked for hours about everything. We talked about our childhoods, we talked about our hopes and dreams. Then he drove me home and he was so sweet. He told me how much fun he had, gave me a big kiss. He was so nice and told me that there was absolutely no pressure, but that he wanted me to know that he really liked me. We talked every day for the next couple weeks and went on a few more low-key dates. He told me how much he enjoyed my company and that he could see himself dating me. After a few more weeks, things started to change. He grew distant. He would avoid me. I never understood why, until it came out that he was actually a criminal. He didn't do anything he told me that he actually did for a living. When I found this out, he told me that he was sorry for lying. He said he hoped I wouldn't judge him and that he wanted to do the right thing with his life and that I inspired this within him. It felt genuine, so I decided to give him another chance. Well, he started to pull away again, and he would bail on plans and break promises. Eventually, I had enough, and we both decided to part ways. Turns out, he'd had a girlfriend the whole time. I cut contact with him, and I didn't speak to him for months. This is when the post-separation abuse started. He called me in a drunken rage one night, screaming at me that I was a whore, that he loved me, that he was going to kill me, and then he started accusing me of wild and insane things that I never did. He started stalking my house, my work. I was genuinely afraid for my life. I went to the police, but they said there wasn't much they could do for me unless he actually tried to hurt me since, and I quote, "they can't go based on hearsay." I realized that for most of our relationship, he was mirroring me. He was carefully curating a version of himself that didn't exist, and this version was based on my personality, my values, my interests, and my beliefs. As the time went on, the mask started to slip. The sociopathic narcissist that he really is began to shine through. He kept me locked in his spell for months just to have a form of supply, and when I saw through the act, he withdrew himself. When I wanted to try to hold him accountable for the self-destructive behavior he was exhibiting and trying to keep him true to his word. It still makes me sick knowing I was the other woman and the reason that someone else was unable to sleep at night. She was probably worried sick, wondering where he was, who he was with. People like Jake are dangerous. As soon as I saw through his act and called him out for having a girlfriend, now he wanted me dead. He hated me. He wanted to pull a character assassination against me. He tricked me into falling for someone that was never real. This time that I will never get back. He also made me a lot more wary of red flags and warning signs. I should have trusted my gut. I should have never trusted any of my so-called friends who vouched for him. Even after everything he did, those same friends still hung out with him and partied with him. To me, those people had no integrity whatsoever, and I was nothing more but a pawn for them to get access to parties, drugs, and events while I was with them. Edit to add. He's such an asshole. But his other ex-girlfriend, she got it even worse than I did, if you can believe that. He held a gun to her head and threatened to use it on her one night. This was during the time when I was unknowingly the other woman. He literally spent the night with me, telling me that he isn't a bad guy, that he cares about me, that he was going to get out of the criminal life, and then, after he drops me off, goes to his girlfriend's house, pulls a gun to her head. How do you explain that? How does that make sense? I've spoken to her many times over the years. She told me once that he loved me more than he loved her, and that even though he hurt me and threatened me, he knew that I was too good for him, and eventually he did let me go. But he never let her go. She asked me, why did he think it was okay to abuse me for years, but he didn't do the same to you? I racked my brain and I came up short. Neither one of us know the answer to that to this day. We held each other and we cried. I don't understand why he did any of this to either of us or anyone else that he abused in the past or is abusing currently. The worst thing about this for me is that she has genuinely not made it out of this okay. She struggles with addiction and her mental health is trashed. The trauma he put her through and the life he thrust her into altered her permanently in the worst way. I am so lucky he let me go, but I'll never understand. If hell is real, the devil is waiting for him with outstretched arms. While I gather my own thoughts on this, I would like to encourage anyone who is currently experiencing domestic abuse to explore the resources I've listed in the description of this video. I'd also like to remind you not to hesitate in calling the police if your safety is in immediate danger. There is no shame in taking steps to protect yourself against harm, and there's absolutely no good reason why your partner should make you feel unsafe. In addition to the list of resources, I've compiled a free safety planning guide for anyone who's considering leaving their abuser but not sure where to start. You can access all of this and so much more directly through my Linktree, which is in the description down below. I am constantly updating my resource list, so please leave me a comment or send me an email to hello@stageleftproject.ca if you think there's any edits or additions I should be made aware of. Once again, I would also like to thank Ava for having the courage to share her story with the world, and for trusting me to deliver it with care. One of my favorite animated series is BoJack Horseman, and there's an episode where Wanda says, "You know, it's funny. When you look at someone through rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags." And I think that it's really important for us to keep that at the front of our minds when we're hearing survivors speak about their experiences. Nobody intends to fall in love with someone who treats them like dirt and has no regard for their needs and their well-being. Myself, Ava, and countless other women around the world live with this cognitive dissonance for years, even after we've managed to escape and restart our lives. It's hard not to be my own worst critic when I look back at all the red flags I missed. However, it's important to hold space for myself and for others who've experienced the same. You're not at fault for loving someone who claimed to love you too. You're not stupid for missing the signs. As we move through this series, I hope to drive the point home that you are not to blame for the actions of your abuser and that it happens way more frequently than you'd think, to women of all ages, creeds, races, and socioeconomic statuses, globally. None of us are asking for it, and none of us are to blame. We exist in a society which prioritizes the reputations of our abusers and which has labeled women as crazy, overdramatic, and attention-seeking for trying to call attention to the things that have happened to us. We actively raise young women to just expect that if a boy is mean to you on the playground, it just means that he likes you, and that their shoulders being bare are the cause for their male counterparts being unable to focus. We teach each other to leave stray hairs in back seats, to text our group chats pictures of our dates, to check in and out with each other when we leave home and when we arrive back. We hold each other's secrets and each other's hair while we vomit into toilets after having statements and rape kits taken, and we're still told that they're not sure there's anything they can do, and that, are we sure we didn't egg him on? Are we sure it is what we think it is? We're gaslit by the parts of society meant to protect us, and then we're gaslit by the men who use that fact to their advantage, and still, we're shamed for not being able to see the forest for the trees when we place our love and faith in the wrong people. And then, the same people who could have and should have helped us through the abuse but chose not to, are usually among the first to take the abuser's side post-separation, to shame us for not leaving sooner. Why didn't you see the red flags? Why didn't you see the signs? Why did it take you so long to leave? Was it even really that bad? Why didn't you just leave him? You start hearing these questions and you start to spiral endlessly. It is neither right nor fair. With that in mind, let's quickly explore 4 of the most easily overlooked red flags in relationships as they pertain to warning signs of abusive partners. Number 1, jealousy. Your partner gets angry and insecure when you talk to other people, especially those of the other sex. They check your phone, email, and social media accounts without your permission. They accuse you of cheating and lying to them. They make you feel guilty for having friends and hobbies outside of the relationship. They say that they are the only one who truly loves you, and that you should trust them more than anybody else. Number 2, control. Your partner dictates every aspect of your life, or tries to, from what you wear to where you go to what you do. They make all of the decisions for you without consulting you or respecting your opinion. They criticize you for being too independent or too assertive. They tell you that they know what is best for you and that you have to follow their rules. They isolate you from your family and friends, saying that they are bad influences or that they don't care about you. Number 3, temper. Your partner loses their cool over the smallest things, like traffic jams, spilled drinks, or missed calls. They yell, cuss, throw things, and slam doors. They punch walls. They blame you for everything that went wrong in their life. They apologize later, promise to change, but never do. Sometimes they may even hurt you physically by grabbing, pushing, slapping, or hitting you. And then they'll try to say it was your fault for making them angry, or that they did it because they love you so much. And finally, number 4, manipulation. Your partner uses emotional tactics to get what they want from you. They make you feel sorry for them or guilty for not doing what they ask. They threaten to harm themselves or others if you leave them or don't comply with their demands. They give you mixed signals, play mind games with you, make you doubt your own feelings, thoughts, and reality. They say that they are the only one who can make you happy and that you can't live without them. If that sounds a little too familiar for comfort and you're considering leaving your abuser, I encourage you to consider the following. Seek help from a domestic violence or sexual assault program in your area. They can provide you with emotional support, peer counseling, safe emergency housing, information, and other services whether you decide to stay or leave your relationship. I encourage you to talk to your friends, family, neighbors, coworkers, or professionals who can help you with safety planning. And I encourage you to feel free to use my guide as a starting point for that conversation. Let them know that you plan to leave your abuser and ask for their support. You can also contact the police and ask for an officer who specializes in partner abuse cases. This can be really daunting, but I promise you it's worth it. Looking back, it's honestly what I wish I would have done months before I finally decided to leave. But hindsight is 20/20, and that's why I'm sharing this with you. The second thing I'd like to encourage you to do is to keep very detailed evidence of any physical abuse, such as photos, medical records, police reports, or text messages. These are incredibly useful for legal purposes and for obtaining a protection order against your partner. You can also document any incident of emotional abuse, such as threats, insults, or manipulation, by writing them down in a journal and recording them on your phone. I know this part is emotionally exhausting, but it's also really important, and I wish I would have kept better records myself. Next, I want you to consider consulting a lawyer or legal aid service about your rights and options regarding custody, divorce, separation, restraining orders, property, and financial support. You can also seek legal advice on how to protect yourself from online harassment, stalking, or identity theft by your partner after the fact. Arguably most important, if at all possible, break up with your partner from a distance. Do not meet them in person, and do not tell them where you're going. You can call them, text them, email them, or send them a letter to end the relationship. Be firm and be clear that you're leaving and that you do not want any further contact with them. Do not give them any reasons or explanations for your decision. Do not fall for promises to change or for apologies. Block their number. Block their social media. Change your phone number and your email address, and if you have to, babe, move. Get away from the situation. Do not offer any explanation, and move on with your life. You need to put a full stop to this, or they'll keep sucking you back in. And finally, stay safe after you leave. I know this is hard, but avoid going to the places where your partner will probably find you or follow you home. Change up your routine and your habits. Take a different way home. Walk in a different direction if you can. Come in through a different door if you live in an apartment building. Switch up your habits. This is important. Inform your employer, your children's school, and other relevant people about your situation and ask them to keep it confidential. I know it feels embarrassing, but the truth is, a majority of people are really genuinely glad to be a second set of eyes for you if you let them know what's going on. Get a security system installed or have all the codes changed if you already have one. Move to a different location if things continue to escalate. Seek counseling. Go to therapy. And heal from the trauma of abuse. I know it sounds impossible, but over time, you can rebuild your life and you can regain your self-esteem. You will get your groove back, I promise. Remember, you're not alone, and you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. Leaving an abuser is a courageous act of self-care and empowerment. You have the right to live a life free of fear and violence. Thank you again for joining me today. I hope by opening up about this difficult topic, I can raise awareness and help others who may be going through similar situations. I also want to remind you that you are not alone and that there is hope and healing after abuse. If you're interested in having me read your story on an upcoming episode of In Her Own Words, please send me an email or a DM to either Instagram or Facebook to start the conversation. The more that we speak up, and the more we shine a light on what happens in the shadows, the less places our abusers have to hide in the dark. If you found today's video to be valuable, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. I would love to hear from you in the comments section below. Let me know what you think of this video, what topics you'd like for me to cover next, or any questions you may have for me. The painting I've been working on today is called Endless Nameless. It is 9 by 12 inches and composed of watercolor, gouache, India ink, gel pen, and gold foil. I painted it on 300 GSM cold pressed paper and it is available. Please send me an email if you're interested. Remember, you will die. But for now, live well. Thanks for joining me today. Ciao for now.